Welcome to week 8 of our English 209 class. We've spent a lot of time with Indian tales, and we have supplemented our work in Indian tales by looking up the Native American, oral tradition tales that might come closer to the actual tales that people are speaking today in their native nations. They might. Now, the fact is, and hopefully this is something that you've taken away from your work in Indian tales, is that as all those tales were depicted, when when somebody started telling a story, there was a group of people around them, there was a fire in the middle of them very often, and today those tales are told in the exact same ways. Sometimes in the actual languages of each of those nations. Often in English, because many of those languages don't have a ton of speakers. More and more speakers are growing. Most of the Indian nations now have programs that are teaching people to speak those languages, to tell those stories in those languages. And we compared, we looked for similarities in Indian tales by Jaime de Angelo, who spent 20 years with a lot of different tribes, but he comes up short. I think we all agree that whatever it was that he created, that sort of, and I hate to call it a Frankenstein, but it is. It is a mishmash, a Frankenstein. It's not. It can't be authentic. It does, as so many of you pointed out in your work. The European influence is going to be a barrier. The simple act of translation almost negates what's being translated in some cases. Now, and this is a situation that happens with a lot of non-Western literature of the Americas, this question of translation. And we are moving in to Mayan literature. We began week 7 looking at glyphs, and then we dove into cracking the Maya code, and we learned how scholars broke that code. It was an epiphany. They all got together and, epiphany after epiphany after epiphany, layer after layer. It took 100 years, at least, to get as far as they have gotten. And we now move from there. And this week, week 8, we're going to be reading the Popol Vuh. And as I was looking at where we had come from to where we are today, I just wanted to take some time and put this work. We have not left that conversation about translation. It's going to be with any conversation that has to do with non-Western literature of the Americas. How do these works come to us? How do they come to us? Well, they come to us often through a variety of translations. And the textbook, Miguel Leon Portilla's In the Language of Kings, on page 400. The problem of translation cannot be overlooked. The Popol Vuh reads in the original Quiche. It's a different book. And of course, it was yet another book when originally written. And it's so clear that these stories derive from oral sources that probably went on for thousands of years. So it too represents a kind of oral tradition that merged into a written literature that then needed to be translated into Quiche and then needed to be translated into Spanish and then was ultimately translated into English. But most of we only have the work of Father Jimenez, the original. That's the earliest piece of work that we have for the Popol Vuh. So we just have to go with it, though. And I think he says, fortunately, however, much of the genius shines through even in these translations. He considers the Tedlock translation highly imaginative, highly interpretive. That's where we are. Um, it just occurred to me, however, since you guys are all going to be reading this, as you read pages 397 and onward through the book, they cover great sections here. But it occurred to me, and by the way, I am not an expert on how to read it, but it deserves to be read as it was heard. Now remember, I mean, it was heard. I don't think I've ever read material that speaks so clearly to its transmission, the way that sentences are phrased, tell us a lot about how it was intended to be experienced. And that's what I wanted to pause and talk to you about. I'll just start reading here with you from our text on page 401, prologue. So, the Book of Council, the Popol Vuh of the Quiche Maya of Guatemala. This is instruction. So we don't read the Popol Vuh the way we would read Indian Tales, right? Indian Tales is written in a kind of cadence, in a kind of rhythm, and in a kind of language that we're all used to. It's a child's story. Obviously it deals with some adult themes, but it's a child's story. And I would say most novels compared to the Popol Vuh are, I hate to say children's stories, but compared to the Popol Vuh, in a way, where it's just to say, so what do we go? How do we approach the Popol Vuh? Well, we approach as like overawed listeners. Like we are overawed. Remember, they didn't have printing presses. If you heard this, you were hearing this from likely a priest. You were hearing it from at least a scholar. And I don't personally know. You were hearing it from somebody very high in a caste society, and you were lucky to hear it, probably. But maybe it filtered down through the entire population. Think about what they wrote on. They wrote on stone. We're talking about like people who thought in thousands of years. They wrote on stone. We publish our writing now in in nothing, in literal, in nothing, a single thing could happen in our culture. Like for instance, the satellites could pop, and we no longer have a literature except for those people that have kept some books around. The Mayans literature persists because it was the work that was transmitted onto stone. Because we can't overlook that when the Spanish came to the Yucatan and came to all the other places where the Mayan culture thrived, and it didn't, like they were actually arriving after there had been significant societal collapse, but we still have Mayans, but the Spanish invasion made it worse. They collected up, I think there were 400 codexes at the time, and the Catholic Church destroyed them. And now there are 3 Mayan codexes in glyphic form. 3, and that's it. There's a 4th in contention, but generally speaking, that whole history's gone, except for what was written in stone. So maybe part of studying literature is a self-reflective moment where we think to ourselves, like, how much they have that much faith in their literature that they wrote it in stone. They wanted it to last. And I think that the question that we get to ask is, how much do we want anything of our culture to last, to be significant into an unforeseeable future? Sure, we all have great confidence in data for the foreseeable future, but there is an unforeseeable future. Anyway, I think that you guys will get it, but I guess I just have to say we don't approach reading this the same way that we approach reading, say, Indian Tales. And I'm not minimizing Indian Tales, although I tend to. Um, it's so just imagine how much you would pay attention if you were, um, you know, in a sweat lodge listening to profoundly sacred stories. You would be leaning in, or if you were around any kind of these are sacred tales. They're not. This isn't necessarily for entertainment. And what we've done with our literature is turned it into kind of a mass market entertainment. Um, so when we approach the Popol Vuh, I'm not saying that you have to like buy it as sort of a Bible of the North American continent or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying. But I am saying that if we want to come close to having a chance to understanding it, we need to approach it in the way that it was created, which was sacred text. You can't miss it when you'll open it up to 401. You'll go to the prologue here. This is the root of the former word. Here is Quiche by name. Here we shall write then. We shall start out then the former words, the beginnings and the taproots of everything done in the Quiche town, the tribe of the Quiche people. So this is what we shall collect then, the decipherment, the clarification, and the explanation of the mysteries and the illumination by former and shaper. These are with caps. Notice anything they put in caps, because this is, it's like a personified spirit being. Bearer, the engenderer are their names, Hunter Possum and Hunter Coyote, Great White Pig and Coati, Majesty and Quetzal Serpent, the heart of the lake, the heart of the sea. So it's not easy reading. Frankly, I really do think that you should read it out loud. And I guess I'm trying to model that for you. If you really want to get the work you're about to read, I suggest that you read it out loud. Now, what our text does is it shows one version, one approach to how this is being translated, but then it gives us the Dennis Tedlock Popol Vuh, which is eminently readable. It doesn't lose that sort of sacred rhythm, but it's very thorough and again more interpretive. So it makes for it's more pleasant. You don't feel barked at as much, but you can read it. And forgive me if I sounded like I was barking, but I mean you cannot read that poetic preface without sort of getting that rhythm. This is important. This is important. This is important. That's what this is about. This was a literature that had spine, that was meaningful. Let's look at Dawn here on page 403. This is the Dennis Tedlock version. This is the account. Here it is. Now it still ripples. Now it still murmurs, ripples, it still sighs, still hums, and it is empty under the sky. So, where are we? What I'm telling you, what I'm trying to illustrate for you is that it's read line by line, even here, even with this. It's read line by line, and empty under the sky. So all there is sky. Origin story. Here follow the first words, the first eloquence. There is not yet one person, one animal, bird, fish, crab, tree, rock, hollow, canyon, meadow, forest. Only the sky alone is there. I guess we have to, even to have an imaginative sense of this, we kind of refer to CGI, we refer to the mediums that are, constructing our literary imagination now. And we seem to, move to film in so many different ways. Imagine thinking of a scene that held nothing in it but sky without seeing it cinematographically. Just that's the way. Anyway, that's what their original listeners would have heard. The face of the earth is not clear. Only the sea alone is pooled under all the sky. There is nothing whatever gathered together. It is at rest. What's great about the Tedlock is that he gives us these signals of pause, right? The semicolon, the period, commas. Use them. Use them. I think you might read out loud. You'll benefit. If you can, read with somebody that you enjoy scaring. Just kidding. No, I'm not. I mean, read with someone that you enjoy amusing, and you can be overly dramatic with this. Get into it. We have an assignment this week that actually asks you to dramatize some of these scenarios that you're going to see. Again, we're going to be using our creativity to mix, to make connections, to have mythos in conversation with one another. That's your assignment this week. You'll see it later in the week, and I don't want to get distracted from what I'm doing. So I'm going to start again here, still on page 403. It is at rest. Not a single thing stirs. It is held back, kept at rest under the sky. Whatever there is that might be is simply not there. Oh, what a good way to say that. Whatever there is that might be someday. Whatever there is that you know, right? Whether it's your abode, your domicile, the tools you use, the people that nothing. That's just a different way of saying nothing. The fact is, when this kind of literature was written, there were no distractions. It was 100% on. It's a literature that requires everything that we have. It literally requires more of us to be in this literature than any other literature. This isn't a literature of distraction. That's the world we live in today. The world of distraction, that's me pretending to hold a phone. I have a drive. I could pretend it's a phone and move my thumb. Oh, I can't get it up there. My notes. All right. Whatever there is that might be is simply not there. Only the pooled water, only the calm sea, only it alone is pooled. So it's almost like time is now moving forward. We just had sky just a second ago. And now without anything changing really, except that time passed, the time of our reading. It's going to stretch your concept of time. Now there's water. Alone is pooled. Is that inferring that there's something around it? Feels like that to me. Let's read on. Whatever might be is simply not there, only murmurs, ripples in the dark, in the night. Only the maker, modeler alone, sovereign, plumed serpent, the bearers, begetters, are in the water, a glittering light. They are there. They are enclosed in quetzal feathers, in blue and green. Again, compare these two translations. Thus the name, plumed serpent. They are great knowers, great thinkers in their very being. Here's an earth in creation, and we've stopped it. And of course, there is sky, and there is also the heart of sky. This is the name of the God as it is spoken. And then came his word. He came here to the sovereign plumed serpent, here in the blackness, in the early dawn. He spoke with the sovereign plumed serpent, and they talked. Then they thought, then they worried. Are you going to have to stop every second? I don't know. I do. Then they talked, then they thought, then they worried. This is the process of building a universe. They agreed with each other. They joined their words, their thoughts. Then it was clear. Then they reached accord in the light. And then humanity was clear. When they conceived the growth, the generation of trees, of bushes, and of growth of life, of humankind in the blackness, in the early dawn, all because of the heart of sky named Hurricane. Thunderbolt Hurricane comes first. The second is newborn Thunderbolt. And the third is raw Thunderbolt. So there were 3 of them as heart of sky who came to the sovereign plumed serpent when the dawn of life was conceived. So overseeing one of the original translations of this was a Catholic priest. And these sort of strange echoes that feel relatively like Western religion, they permeate through. But as our preface reminds us, there's still such a valid. So I guess I'm just talking about that. So sometimes there are these moments of translation here where you're like, really? You know, and watch for those. Watch for those as you read. So there were 3 of them as heart of sky who came to the sovereign plumed serpent when the dawn of life was conceived, how should it be sown? How should it dawn? Who is to be the provider, nurturer? Let it be this way. Think about it. The water should be removed, emptied out for the formation of the earth's own plate and platform. Then comes the sowing, the dawning of the sky earth. But there will be no high days and no bright praise for our work, our design, until the rise of human work. The human design, they said. And so what I've tried to do here is model how we read this. We don't read it, this is just, I'm I'm actually terrified to read this. This is a Chris Moore book by Christopher Moore. And they're terrifying. I was going to just read some in that sort of narrative way that we read, but Chris will defy me. He will. Sorry to even allow him to intrude on the work of your reading of the Popol Vuh, which, listen, when I sit here and I make a video saying its intention is sacred, we don't necessarily need to hold it as sacred. That is not what I am saying. What I am saying, though, is we have to approach it as we would a document that an entire culture held as sacred. That is the heart of the literature here. Gosh, I'm already hearing that. Can't read it for like 5 minutes without falling into that cadence. So anyway, I want to welcome you into this week and tell you that this is a significant piece of work you're going to be experiencing this week. And want to say how great it is to see the glyphs coming in and to see the papers that you wrote on Indian Tales. What a pleasure those have been to read. So I encourage you to read all of our assignments this week so that you'll understand how much time you'll have to do the reading of the Popol Vuh, the pages that I've assigned of the Popol Vuh, and then do the work that's associated with them. So you'll kind of want to get a sense for what's due midnight Sunday. I'm trying to give you as much time as possible so that it works with your schedules. I hope everybody's enjoying the class, and I look forward to seeing your response to the Week 8 material.